chances of a new typhoon increasing this coming week on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 18th. Had a slight absence in bulletins recently, sometimes due to technical issues, others due to other issues, but Fabienne is still active as a Category 1 cyclone, quite close to Diego Garcia. That's the main system active right now, although trouble could be brewing in the Western Pacific. In the Atlantic though, it's 14 days until hurricane season. We can sense that things are starting to change there. One or two frontal systems trawling across the US East Coast and out at sea as well, but no areas of interest active right now. The Eastern Pacific, of course, is already underway, day 4 of hurricane season here, but similarly, no chances of any tropical cyclones here, and the tropics look pretty dim and quiet right now. Although the intertropical convergence zone looking quite active there, it looks like, with quite a bit of cloud cover. Well, the interesting action right now is a 60% chance over there in the Western Pacific, which will be headed towards the northwest. We'll look at that in more detail on the models in a moment, but those chances are rising and more models are on board. And there's Fabienne in the South Indian Ocean, what's left of that burst that happened across the Eastern Indian Ocean a couple of weeks ago, which spawned this storm, as well as, of course, the very destructive cyclone Mocha. But there's Fabienne, stalling right now, quite slow movement, not far from Diego Garcia, who are on tenterhooks right now, on the edge of this storm's influence. Satellite imagery in the last 24 hours looks like this. You can quite clearly see the signature of Fabienne there. A fairly small tropical cyclone, and of course it was a powerful one. Very late season, near record I believe, and near record latitude, low latitude of development as well, of course. Here's the Western Pacific on satellite imagery right now, and you can see there that system is starting to develop. There's actually two areas of interest here, 96W and 97W, I think they both are. The other one was further towards the west, but first of all, looking at Fabienne here on this latest satellite imagery, you can see Diego Garcia just off the northwestern side of the storm there, quite close, but still not receiving significant impacts from the storm. Just a slight move northwards would change that, as the central convective area is not very far away. The storm itself, though, has weakened substantially from its Category 3 peak a few days ago, and is now barely holding on to Category 1 status. Here's a closer look on that other Western Pacific system, the one that's likely to form that we've marked, and slight rotation starting to appear, but really not very much just yet, but certainly lots of convection energy over there, and it could be a big rainmaker, really big rainmaker for some of the Micronesian islands on its way towards Guam. We'll take a proper look at that in a moment, but looking interesting, that system, and it's still got quite a bit of time yet. Well then, sea surface temperatures look like this. The Eastern Pacific looking decent, with temperatures pushing close to 30 degrees Celsius in a few spots, and higher in quite a few others actually, in the main area of development. The Atlantic, warm sea surface temperatures now rushing up along the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama there, 26 degrees Celsius waters, and part of the Florida coast there as well, and on the east coast too, that Gulf Stream really extending out. Indian Ocean still very warm even after Cyclone Mocha. Temperatures are still 28 degrees where it was, and elsewhere temperatures are still warmer. The Arabian Sea though is the hottest right now, pushing 32 degrees. The Southwest Indian Ocean is looking less active right now for sea surface temperature, but they're still okay, around about 27 degrees all the way down to Mauritius and La Reunion. And in the Australian region, temperatures really dropping off there as well, although they are still decent. One or two spots of 29 degrees Celsius still along the coast of Australia. And in the South Pacific, those temperatures are really starting to ebb away there as well, particularly on New Caledonia. The whole south side now is below 26 degrees Celsius. Fiji still got some warm temperatures towards its north. And the Western Pacific, extremely warm sea surface temperatures in the Philippine Sea, where the system is right now. Very deep latitudes, very warm temperatures, cooling slightly to around 29 degrees by the time it gets to Guam. Sea surface temperatures in the Western Pacific are above average, and you can see here the Indian Ocean, that big cool pool there relative to average from Cyclone Mocha, and the El Nino effect, which is continuing to build in the Eastern Pacific there. We're certainly on El Nino watch now, if that wasn't clear beforehand, and that cool area in the Eastern Pacific is still shrinking a little bit. Atlantic generally a little bit above average, though particularly so in the eastern part. Southern Pacific oceanic heat content looks like this, still decent amounts in those lower latitudes, but no storms are really going to form in that area now. And in the Western Pacific, you can see that massive area now of extremely high oceanic heat content in the Philippine Sea. Some storms are really going to make their selves felt and take full advantage of that. Eastern Pacific also slowly turning it up. So here's the GFS out to 5 days, a rather broad system that starts to rotate there, and off it goes 20th of May, 21st, and it starts to move northwesterly towards Guam. Now this is an interesting development because previous model runs had it further south and weaker actually, so it's now trending a little bit stronger and further north, in fact affecting Guam there with near typhoon force winds as it does become a typhoon as it gets quite close to it there on that 5-day run. Other models starting to hop on board that as well, though not quite as strong apart from one or two. I think it was the ECMWF that's really uptrended today. And here's the Indian Ocean where we have Fabienne there, stalling for quite a bit and eventually turning off towards the east. GFS still wants that to happen. Meteo France, I think, is still wanting it to stay further towards the west. They've been fighting each other on this point for its whole duration. So far, Meteo France have been correct. And there it goes, possibly a secondary peak there near Category 1 status. Looking at rainfall estimates from this Western Pacific system, they could get quite alarmingly high actually. There are a few islands in the path there, particularly the islands around Satawal, small islands and atolls in that area of Micronesia between Chuuk and Yap. And somewhere in that area there could be really high rainfall amounts there, getting up towards 52 inches there indicated from the GFS model in just the next 7 days. I'm trying to figure out how much that is. That is a really massive amount of rain. It's well over 1,000 millimeters as a matter of fact. And over Chuuk over there towards the right hand side, that's around 7 to 8 inches. That's 200 millimeters. On Guam around the same there, and further north on Saipan we could be looking at around 3 to 4 inches, getting up towards 100 millimeters. But certainly if the storm tracks directly over somewhere in the early stages, there could be a whopping amount of rainfall for them. In the longer range, this system really does develop quite a lot there towards moderate to major typhoon strength, Category 3 by the looks of it there on the GFS model, and to its credit it's been forecasting something like this to form for, it feels like weeks, but certainly many days, and some of the model runs have had it extremely powerful. Remains to be seen whether that will happen, but still predicting a major typhoon there on its journey towards Japan. It will weaken before it gets there and it will recurve. And looking towards the South Indian Ocean, you can see what's left of Fabienne there turning towards the west once again as it gets sucked away and moving along there towards the African continent towards the latter days of May. That's the 5 to 10 day period there, showing what's left of Fabienne continuing. It will be no threat to Rodrigues or Mauritius. That's all the serious stuff done with for tonight, but you can take a look at the Force 13 merch store by scanning the barcode at the top right and taking a look at everything we've got to offer, including full season and individual storm animations on request. We also have our Still Waiting for Hone t-shirt, which is still sitting there proudly waiting, and I think it'll be doing that for quite a while. In the Scilly range, no Hone, but the continuation of that Western Pacific typhoon. It shunts up across the coast of Japan and off towards the northeast. No landfall, it stays out to sea there, although the winds will affect the coast of Japan if this happens. And then a second typhoon forming there and slamming into Luzon in the Philippines, probably as a Category 1. That's according to that GFS model run, but that's right at the end of the run, and I wouldn't put any stock into that just yet. As a matter of fact, let's just take things one storm at a time. This first one may not even go as we expect yet. But you can talk about all of this on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13 for tropical weather and general weather chat. And we also have a few places for more general discussion over there as well. Over 3,300 members at this point all around the world. Well, another historic day on May 18th, 2020. You may have been there. We certainly were, covering Cyclone Amphan, which was peaking as a Category 5 in the North Indian Ocean and was headed towards the coast of India. It made landfall eventually not far from Kolkata as a mid-range Category 2 storm. We also had Tropical Storm Arthur active on this day off the coast of the United States. I think people may remember that one, brushing across the Northern Carolina Outer Banks and then back out to sea. That image there, of course, is Amphan, and what a sight it was. Back to today, and to think it's been 3 years since that. The first name on the Atlantic naming list this year is Arlene in the Eastern Pacific, Adrian, and in the Central Pacific, of course, it is still Hone. That would be the next storm, would be our number 19 of the year so far. In the Western Pacific, next up is Mawar, the North Indian Ocean. We're now looking out for Biparjoy, and hopefully it doesn't come anytime soon. We are code red as well, which is very curious because it's mainly demand led, because one of our videos did extremely well for an unknown reason. In the Australian region, the next name is Jasper, the Southwest Indian Ocean, Gezani, and in the South Pacific, it's Lola. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back on Friday night.